Serena Williams, incidentally enough, will be seeded 25th. She could meet a top 8th player in the world in round 3, as early as round 3 even. She's currently ranked as Williams 183 in the world. Maria Sharapova, incidentally enough, is seeded 24th. And meanwhile, the number 1 seeds for both men's and women's draws will be Roger Federer and Simona Halep.
Cheers, Rich.
The Football Show on Off the Ball.
In association with the faster-than-ever Boyle Sports app. Multiples made easy and personalised content on every sport. Download it now. Boyle Sports. Time to play.
I'm prepared to do anything I can to play for my country again.
Do it then. What about your start to the game?
It wasn't bad, was it?
Why should an honest answer be a mistake?
How can a modern-day manager not have a mobile phone?
Why should he?
So we've had Marcela Mora y Araujo on the show several times in the past. Argentinian, a Londoner as well, football writer, really brilliant journalist, and she's going to join us to talk Argentina last night. Maradona last night. He was as much a part of the story as anybody.
Isn't he always?
Dave McIntyre here in studio, which has been a joy all evening, podcast listeners, and here he is on the football show as well. Very exciting to have Dave McIntyre along, of course.
I'm just going to assume that all of that is sincere.
It is sincere. I look forward to Marcela maybe applying her linguistic skills to the video of Sampaoli and Messi, where people are claiming Sampaoli was asking Messi, will I bring on Aguero now? I don't know if that's a joke or if that was true, but it does seem certainly like the balance of power has shifted very much in the player's direction, and Sampaoli is kind of along for the ride a little bit.
He said as much in the build-up, didn't he? This is Messi's team.
It's Messi's team, yeah. So we'll talk about all that with Marcela in maybe about 15-20 minutes time, and she's well worth a follow on Twitter as well if you are interested in Argentinian football. But the big story today, along with Brazil going through as expected against Serbia, is Germany. A quite extraordinary game, particularly the finish. I mean, Manuel Neuer running past 3 outfield German players to join the attack and saying to them, you stay back. I think I can contribute more here with my feet. A personal highlight. And VAR worked a treat as well. Yeah. I mean, it absolutely worked brilliantly. Where are you on VAR?
Well, it swings from day to day, depending on what I've just seen. I tweeted on Monday night, VAR is officially a farce. And that was after the penalty that was given against Portugal. But it was one of many incidents where the referees seemed to take an age to go leave the field. Play was held up for a significant length of time on multiple occasions, and I just had enough of it. And then I watched the BBC post-match analysis, and Alan Shearer was like, this is an absolute joke. Apparently Alan Shearer has said that VAR is great on BBC's coverage tonight, because he saw what he saw today, and we saw what we saw last night with Cunha Kakir, who's a brilliant referee, and one particular incident where he was asked to review a potential penalty, a handball in the penalty area. He took a 1-second look at it on the screen and just said, this is rubbish. Yeah, I am not going to award a penalty for this. I wondered, would a referee say to the VAR analyst after the game, you can't be calling me a cross for that kind of stuff.
So maybe the point is that a good referee uses VAR well, and a bad referee doesn't.
A strong-willed referee will get the best out of the system. A weak-willed referee will make a mockery of the system. Yeah. And that's what happened in the Portugal game.
And therefore we can make the mistake of blaming the system as opposed to the poor referee.
Yeah. Now, at the same time, there needs to be some guidelines and guidance for the people in those remote trucks as to when and why they are calling the referee ashore to take a look at something. Because I think a weak-willed referee will be asked to come across, and the very fact that they're being asked to leave the field to look at something makes them begin to believe that they've made a mistake. Yeah. And it increases the likelihood of them rowing back on their original decision, even if their gut instinct originally was absolutely the right one.
It's a very natural human emotion, isn't it? Imagine you're refereeing a game and you're interrupted to say, actually, you need to come over and look at this. As you're walking over to the VAR, just on a human level, you would think, well, they wouldn't call me over for no reason. Yeah. And there might be some kind of confirmation bias going on. I guess it would be interesting. We hear it in rugby, we hear what the TMO is saying. It would be really interesting to hear what the communication is. Like, are they getting in their ear, look, I don't think this is a penalty, Dave, but just have a look at it to be sure? Or are they getting, this really is a penalty, you have to look at this is just nailed on, wait and you see it? Or are they getting the same standard communication?
I would imagine it's the latter, but I'm speculating here that it's just VAR, make your way to the field. But the body language of Cüneyt Çakır, the Turkish referee last night, for me, spoke of a guy who was a little peeved at having been asked to come across and look at this.
Yeah, he has a certain strength of character and confidence.
Well, he does, and he's refereed a couple of Champions League finals. He's probably the Pierluigi Collina of his time. Like, he's probably the most respected referee in Champions League football at the moment. So he's well able to stand up for that. But as I said to Kevin earlier, the World Cup brings together a plethora of referees that have never refereed at anything close to the stage and the stakes and the standard that's required at a World Cup, the biggest footballing stage in the world, thereby calling it the World Cup. And some of them are out of their depth. And VAR makes an already difficult job in front of the TV cameras and billions of people watching across the globe even more difficult.
Yeah, fair point. Well, it worked a treat today. If you didn't see the Germany-South Korea game, there was an offside goal. A German player had played the ball back into the path of a South Korean player who was in an offside position, but obviously the referee hadn't seen the fact it was a German who had played the ball back, and suddenly a goal in the kind of 90th minute, which was disallowed, was suddenly allowed. And effectively
at 0-0.
At 0-0. That guaranteed Germany.
You think of the stakes here, like Mexico could be out tonight were it not for VAR.
Yeah. And then
unjustifiably so.
Germany through the kitchen sink, and they got that second with Manuel Neuer chasing back. So it was on the BBC certainly as well, obviously, as RTE, and Jonathan Pearce and Kevin Kilbane were there. Dave McIntyre was in earlier on. I was otherwise engaged, and Dave caught up with Kev. So here's a reminder of how Jonathan Pearce and Kev watched the action before we hear from the main man, Kilbane.
Who's it come off though? Who's it come off? It's come off Toni Kroos. Well, you might need VAR. Definitely. He's not offside. Yeah, goal! Joachim Löw's World Cup holders are heading out of the World Cup at the first phase for the first time since 1938. The biggest VAR goal ever. We may not have heard of Kim Young-kwon before these World Cup finals, but he'll go down as history as the man who knocks Germany out in the first phase. And here's Son to wrap it up all alone. Son Heung-min! 2-0 to South Korea. We've heard there's going to be a possible VAR for this leading up to the goal. Was there an offside? We'll wait and see. It doesn't really matter. Germany are out of the World Cup.
So the 2018 FIFA World Cup, ladies and gentlemen, will be organized in Russia.
Soccer is popular. It's very popular all over the world, especially in Russia.
But I said to myself, I said, you know, this Russia thing with
Kremlin Kilbane.
Come in, Kazan. It's Dublin calling. Is Kevin Kilbane there, please?
How are you, David? All good?
Good evening, sir. Looking well. Lovely white shirt as well for the benefit of our radio listeners. You're clearly using an iron over there as well and getting your laundry done. Very impressive.
Well, I tell you something now. You're wrong on both counts.
Well, you've literally pulled that out of the packet, have you?
I've pulled this out of the packet today. That's no lie. And with the heat in Kazan, it's kind of ironed the creases out for me, or it's made the shirt look a little bit more respectable. So
excellent.
That's all I've got for you.
You've scrubbed up well for tonight's piece, which is the most important thing. Kev, this is just unbelievable. It has sent the world of football reeling. It's just quite incredible. 2-0. The third World Cup in a row. The defending champions have been knocked out in the group stage. We'll get to that shortly. The world's top-ranked team gone, and Germany finishing bottom of their group. You were at the game. It's just an incredible turn of events.
Yeah, you're right. We'll talk about the tactics and how they've done it maybe in a second. But Dave, this is just such an unbelievable story. Given the fact is that what happened against Sweden, scoring so late on, you're just expecting, right, momentum's with you now. You've got a great chance to get out. Come on, let's just go and do it. Go and do the business. And it was so flat. Again, given what had happened, There was nothing. They offered absolutely nothing. And then to get to the end of the game and seeing Korea get the goals away that they did, I mean, what a story. I mean, this World Cup, it just keeps on getting better and better. It's a gift that keeps on giving, honestly.
Really, we should be talking about South Korea and what is just their third win in what was their 27th World Cup match, but we're not going to do that because, brilliant for them, and they're a little unlucky. Had Mexico done them a favour, they could have actually got out of the group themselves. So congratulations to them. It's an incredible day for Korean football and their supporters. But, I mean, the story is obviously the fact that Germany will not be advancing to the group stages. To me, they look tired. I know you're saying there should have been a spark and an energy about them given the way in which they dug out the result against the Swedes, but you said it was an air of, I don't know, they looked languid in what they were doing, but were they unfit? Were the Koreans full of running, full of energy? I mean, how did you see it in the stadium, seeing it live, in terms of what the German players brought to the game? Tactics aside, but just their endeavour and their ability to put their stamp on the game.
Yeah, it's a great shout actually on the tiredness. They've come into the World Cup though, Dave, Germany. I think they've had a spell of 9 months leading into it without winning a game. The game plan was constantly Timo Werner. Yes, he's a number 9 where he plays for Leipzig, but it's about interchange. It's about getting movement ahead of the ball. But I just felt today that everything was coming towards the ball, and I felt that there was a serious lack of energy. I felt as though they were slowing the ball down too much. Tiredness could play a factor. I don't know the players individually. I personally can't comment on that. But South Korea's game plan through the first 4 or 5 minutes, and yes, and you're right in saying that, credit to them. It's an unbelievable achievement what happened today for South Korea. But it was basically defend very narrow, almost the width of the goal, certainly the width of the 18-yard box, the width of the D, and we will get our rewards off that. That's what they did. And when South Korea broke a couple of openings, much the same as we saw against Mexico, where Mexico were exposing that German side that kept on continuously throwing bodies forward. As the second half progressed, they kept on creating overloads. And 2 or 3 times, if a better pass was made, South Korea would have scored. Most definitely would have got themselves in front earlier than what they actually did. And Germany, and you saw it across. Before, the best chances fell to Mats Hummels. Mario Gomez had a decent chance. He had 3 glorious chances. They were quite late on, actually, the chances. But for 65 minutes, Germany created virtually nothing. And for their 75% possession, or virtually 75% possession, created nothing. It was, personally, watching them, I thought it was a turgid watch. I thought it was boring, lethargic, negative football that was keeping the possession of the ball, and we want to see side, playing from the back, progressing through the thirds of the pitch. But I didn't see any spark from them whatsoever throughout that game.
Yeah, they had 74% of the possession. They had 28 shots on goal, but only 6 of those were on target. So, I mean, the stats obviously are irrelevant given that Korea won the game 2-0. What was wrong with the way in which they were trying to build up the play? Was it like they were intent on keeping the ball and just assumed that it would happen for them, and with ball players in the team like Toni Kroos that eventually someone would pick out the pass like they did against Sweden? Or was there something different at play? Maybe the tiredness, maybe an air of complacency when you're up against the 57th ranked team in the world?
Yeah, complacency. I don't think it was complacency, Dave. I think there should have been momentum with them again after that Sweden game. Tactically, the way that they set up, I spoke there before about how they got exposed against Mexico when there was overloads against. In that game, it was Boateng and Hummels. Today, it was Sula and Hummels that played centre half, with both Kimmich and Hector, the 2 fullbacks, playing so far advanced. If you saw Jonas Hector in the first half, he was actually playing the centre forward position at times. He was actually in between the middle of the goals, where realistically, you want Timo Werner. Timo Werner's off the back of a good season with Leipzig. He's played as a number 9 for them. He's played through the middle. 21 goals he scored off the back of a decent season. Now he's Germany's number 9. You want him through the middle. The first half he ended up on. He was continuously out on the left wing, and again, Jonas Hector getting inside and going through the middle. Marco Reus was coming into the central position to try to get on the end of things. So everything was about, as I put before, it was about getting the front 3 in particular. From Royce and Werner, Özil in behind them as well, trying to get possession of the ball and try to get maybe that interchange of positions, try to create the chances there. But they weren't creating chances because all South Korea did, they just dropped off. And they said, I tell you what, you're going to have all the possession, keep it in front of us so you can do all the interchange of position that you want. We are going to hold our ground. Communication between South Koreans back 4 that was, if you know what I mean, if you've got the communication between the left back and the centre half, if Timo Werner is coming away from the centre forward position, going out onto the left hand side. It's just communication. You don't track your runner, you just pass the man on to each other, and that's what South Korea kept on doing. And if I was in that back four today, I think I could have coped with that, even at my age, because there was no dynamic movement, there was no real running in behind. It was all in front of the South Korean back four, and I thought it was fairly easy to defend against.
Yeah, you've talked about a couple of guys that were maybe not in their best positions. Goretzka's another guy that was being played out of position, certainly not in the position he's accustomed to at Schalke.
Poor, he struggled, yeah.
And the manner in which they played in both the Mexico and Sweden games, we just figured that eventually they would spark into life, and that Cruz brilliant winner would be that spark. But turns out they were just waiting to be put out of their misery, Kev. And you have to ask questions now of the manager who's signed a new contract with the DFB before the tournament began. We all know about that in Irish terms, about sort of both in a few sports, the difficulties of doing that with a manager before he goes to a major tournament. Where does it leave Jogi Löw now? 5 changes he made for today's game. Should have been more freshness, given the fact that nearly half the team didn't start against Sweden, and yet they looked just as leggy, and they looked like another team that he'd put out where you're trying to get square pegs into round holes.
Yeah, I think he's under serious pressure. I was talking to quite a bit of the German press before the game, and there was a lot suggesting, and even from what they were relaying back to me, they wanted to go with the squad that went to the Confederations Cup last year. They didn't want the Ozils, they didn't want the Royces, because essentially the team that went to the Confed Cup was the under-23 team. They actually pulled quite a few players out of the under-21 squad that went and won the Euros last summer. They pulled a lot of players out of that squad to go to the Confed Cup with them. So the suggestion was that they wanted to go with that squad and leave Ozil, leave Mario Gomez, leave who else would I be putting in that bracket? Ozil, yes, leave Hummels, leave them all out. Just go with the under-23 side that won last year, where, as you talk about, they'll have the energy. They'll have real enthusiasm. Because I looked at that side today, and you mentioned the word complacent. They looked a little bit complacent to me. Thomas Muller, Dave, he's been pretty poor over the last year. He's had a decent second half to the season. But what's he given if he's not getting himself into positions to go and arrive at the end of attacks? He's not doing anything. Sami Khedira, another one. One pace now. He's not the player he was before his injuries. So you're looking at it overall. I think it does put a lot of pressure on Jogi Löw, because I don't see... I haven't seen in those two, barring the last 20 minutes against Sweden in the first 2 matches, they were pretty average. And a lot of the chances that you created, or so-called chances, even today, you talk about the stats: 23 shots. Did you say 6 on target? They're all shots from distance, Dave. All of them were, or a lot of them were shots from early on, before the last 10 minutes, where they did have a couple of chances. Yeah, Gomez had a good header, and Hummels had a decent couple of chances. They were all chances. They were shots from distance, and it was fairly comfortable, I felt, for Korea. So yeah, in answer to your original question, yeah, Löw is under pressure because it's what he does now. It almost seems like this great German side that were brilliant in the last World Cup, that have been so good for such a long time now. It seems to me like it's at the end of the road for a lot of those players.
Yeah, it does feel like the end of an era, all right. By the time we get to Qatar, you're probably throwing a blanket over several players and questioning whether or not they're going to be there at the next World Cup. Ozil, Kroos, Khedira, Hummels, Neuer even. Definitely the likes of Muller and Mario. Well, definitely Mario Gomez. Muller will only be 32 by the time the World Cup comes along, but he already seems to be on the wane. And it's an interesting point you make about the Confed Cup team. They win the tournament, minus all their key men, as you've said, and we took that as an example of the extraordinary strength and depth that German football was continuing to produce. Well, either he didn't believe in that strength and depth, Jogi Löw, or he didn't have the balls to go with the strength and depth. Which do you think it is?
Well, I think, personally, it's the latter. He didn't have the balls. I think if he goes there and goes with that under-23 side that won last year at the Confederations Cup, then, and it goes the way that it's gone now, then there's question marks asked over him. He has gone with that excellently drilled German side, that really talented German side. He's given them all a chance to go and defend the title, go and defend the World Cup, go and have that continuation over your period of time where you've actually dominated European and world football. That's what he's given them a chance to do. And simply, Dave, you and I have sat at Premier League games and we've watched Mesut Ozil. We've continuously come away from games. We know he's talented. We know he's incredibly talented football, but we've continuously come away from games being disappointed with him. You and I have sat doing commentary on Champions League games, and we've seen Julian Draxler, another one, where you come away and you're slightly disappointed with him. Marco Reus, another one. Anyone who's watched him playing for Borussia Dortmund over the last while, you are disappointed when you come away from watching him. So realistically, it's hardly surprising when we see the club form that they show. Thomas Muller, another one. Thomas Muller, he's one pace, Dave. He's a clever footballer. He's a player that arrives in the penalty area. He's constantly on the move. So that's how he gets his chances. If he's not scoring in games, if he's not doing the business in front of goal, what are you going to get out of Thomas Muller? Realistically, what are you going to get out of him? That's only 4 players. Sami Khedira is another one. We would have commentated on him playing for Juve. He does get exposed. He has not been at his very best prior to his serious knee injury that he had. So I've mentioned 5 players, and all those are more or less certain starters within that German side. So what other conclusion are you going to get? They haven't been shown the form at club level. Realistically, we would have to get a huge turnaround of form from those players in particular to get them performing at the World Cup. I had my worries after that Mexico game, and it's been proved right.
Yeah, maybe we're using the benefit of hindsight now, but we should have been a little more inquisitive about where Germany were after the Mexico game. We just assume it's Germany and they're eventually going to get their house in order. There was a few other stories emerging from the game. One of the most bizarre moments we've ever seen in World Cup history was Manuel Neuer popping up on the left wing and basically getting what he deserved with a long ball being pumped over the top and allowing Heung-min Son just to tap it into an empty net. I mean, he's a bit of an eccentric guy at the best of times. I'm pretty sure that was not an instruction, if the shit's hitting the fan, that you're entitled to wander as far up the field as you would like. Did that sum up the disconnect maybe between the players and the management, or the players and the form they had 4 years ago? It was just an outrageous moment from a loose cannon who thought he could probably do what he wanted.
Yeah, he is. And it goes to show, Dave, to all the keepers, and all the suggestion was, I'd love to see Manuel Neuer playing in midfield. Look at his first touch when it come back to him. First touch was horrendous. It was a simple throw-in laid to him. He let the ball get away from him and he got caught. He simply, yeah, you can play in your 5-a-sides and you can look great in small-sided games, getting your little touch right, but his touch was awful and he got caught out badly. And it was so ill-disciplined. Through injury time, he played outfield, and there was a couple of times as well when there was another potential for a breakaway, and he was playing on the halfway line or in the Korean half. He got badly exposed, he got badly caught out, and it's a lack of discipline. It is, Dave. It is a total lack of discipline for him to do what he did. What difference is Manuel Neuer going to make? Is he going to go and beat a player, do a little step over, win a penalty? No, he isn't. He's not good enough to do that. He's trying to get an overload, to give him an extra player, but his touch suggests that he could never, ever play outfield. And I've heard the German coach say that he could probably play in the Bundesliga too, play in midfield. Absolutely no chance. Total nonsense.
Not at today's evidence anyway.
No, nonsense.
VAR, we saw the worst of it 2 nights ago. We saw the best of it last night, albeit with a really strong-willed referee in Kunya Kakir, probably the best referee in the world right now. And we saw the best of it tonight. I mean, the Korean goal would not have stood had we had been operating under the previous rules where VAR was not part of the game. So we've had the best and the worst in the space of 3 days. Where are you standing on it right now?
I've got to be in favour of it. I have to be. Coming into it, I was very sceptical, given what we saw in the FA Cup this season, because it hasn't been great, I don't feel, in the FA Cup. I think there's been a number of mistakes that have looked to me clear and obvious, and that's the thing that we need to state. It's got to be clear and obvious decisions, or clear and obvious mistakes by the referee that needs to overturn a decision. Today was a clear and obvious mistake by the officials. Clear and obvious. I'd still look back through the tournament and I'd look at the Antoine Griezmann incident. I personally don't think that was clear and obvious. I don't think that should have been overturned, that penalty, when they give it to France.
The penalty that Portugal conceded, probably the worst of them all. Well, the referee clearly feels like the issue I have, and I've been talking to Joe about it, is that a weak-willed referee is automatically, in his mind, under pressure to go against his original instincts, because he's been asked to come across to the TV screens by the side of the pitch.
Yeah, Dave, do you know why he did that? Because he never sent Cristiano Ronaldo off. Simply because he never sent him off. And I feel as though he thinks... Sorry, the phone's just ringing there. I feel as though that he made a mistake on the Ronaldo. I personally don't think that... You can make the argument either way. Should Ronaldo been sent off? I don't think it was a major dig. But he probably has ended up... He's got the fright in himself, so he thinks, look, I've not given that, and there's going to be questions asked of me because I've not sent Cristiano Ronaldo off, so I'll give the penalty. I think that's why he's done that. I'm with you. It was the wrong decision, but this is where the VAR actually makes it exciting in the latter stages of the tournament, because all of a sudden now we're getting the excitement. We saw it today, yes, from the decision that was brilliant there, brilliantly overturned. I have to be in favour of it that we've seen a great decision being made there. But it's adding to drama. It's adding to excitement of the competition. Much the same that I was very much 50-50. I was probably slightly leaning against it, given what happened across this season in the FA Cup. But I think now it's been proven that the way that it's been worked across this World Cup, I think by and large we have got some good decisions that have been overturned, or bad decisions that have been overturned.
But I think it's dependent on a referee who's confident in his own skin and knows his own mind. Last night, Cunha Kakir was brought across to look at what was a farcical request by the VAR assistant to come up, actually asking the referee to come over at all.
The header off Rojo, wasn't
and
it?
you could see Kakir's reaction immediately. Took one look at it and just went, this is rubbish. I'm having no part of this. Walked straight back onto the field, did the waving of the arms gesture, and he said, there's no way I can give a penalty for that. So I think it depends on how confident these referees are. And some of these referees, this is way out of their comfort zone, refereeing a World Cup group game in comparison to the games they might be doing week in, week out. One other question, I mentioned at the top, third defending champion to exit the group stage at the World Cup. It's the fourth in 5 years when you throw in the French in 2002. Is it a trend? Is it a reason for it, or is it just purely coincidental?
I think, looking at Germany, Dave, we would have all made our predictions, and 99 out of 100 would have said Germany get out of the group. We would have said that. I don't necessarily see it as a trend. I just think that it's almost as if...
Kev, is it not, sorry to cut across you, is it not linked by the loyalty that a manager feels he must show, particularly if it's the same manager leading him into the following World Cup, to players who are probably past their sell-by date? It was definitely the case with France in 2002, almost certainly the case with Italy in 2010 in South Africa, where a manager feels, how can I leave out these World Cup winners, legends of the game in my country, and risk the flack that will come my way if we get knocked out and they're either not in the squad at all or have been knocked out. So it increases the likelihood of you having players that are past their best in comparison to some of the teams you're up against that are playing their best team.
Yeah, it does increase the likelihood of that happening, yes, but you have to show that squad of players the type of respect. Maybe, I mean, again, I've already highlighted a number of those German players that simply haven't been good enough consistently over the last 2 years. That's what I would feel. There's a number that have. Toni Kroos, you can't deny, he's actually come out of this World Cup probably with a little bit of credit, I suppose. He's one of the only ones. But yeah, I mean, essentially what you're saying is right. It is right that you need to freshen things up, and that was why the suggestion was from a lot of the German press that they should have gone with that Confederation Cup squad from last year, because it would have been a fresh squad. You're building for the future. But how on earth can you say that you're not going to be given the chance to defend your World Cup? I think that would be incredibly harsh. Personally, I think it would be incredibly harsh, given what they all have achieved throughout their careers. But all of a sudden, you do find that when a player reaches a level, where do you go from being a world champion? Where do you go from it? I don't know. I mean, I could never dream of it. You know, you got the opportunity to play in a World Cup is amazing, but to win it, that just seems like the ultimate. How can you not fall off the levels that you've reached simply because it's so difficult to maintain those levels? It really is once you reach that goal.
Yeah, well, I guess there's a reason why no team have retained the title since Brazil in 1962.
I would say though, Dave, as well, it does show. I mean, without wanting to, you were sat in there, you were with Mossy Quinn and Jer a couple of weeks ago, and I heard you saying that the Champions League, it does mean more winning a Champions League than playing in the World Cup. Dave, I have got to disagree with you off the scale from that. This World Cup has proved it. You're lining up.
Yeah, we were specifically talking about Mo Salah. And
right, okay,
whether or not he could have been in a position to continue in the Champions League final.
Yeah, right, okay, I take you. I know what you were saying specifically about that, and things get taken out of context. Our show's never one to take things out of context, Dave, as you know. But what I would say, Dave, I think it's shown. Look at the Colombian players when they're lining up for the national anthem. It means more than anything because you're playing for your country. There's so much more on it. Your families are behind you. Your whole life is geared towards, particularly the South American clubs, the whole life's geared towards playing in the Champions League. Yes, they want to play for Real Madrid and Barcelona. That's the big pull for the South American players. But playing in a World Cup is way, way bigger than anything. It is, and it's been proved at this World Cup. What a World Cup we're having, and I think it's only going to get better through the knockout stages. Okay,
I disagree with you, but I don't really have a leg to stand on because I haven't played in a World Cup like you have, so...
You do talk nonsense at times. I would probably say something a little bit stronger than that, but anyway, go on.
You're entitled to your opinion, albeit, in my opinion, it's the wrong one. One last question. We haven't mentioned the group winners. Like, Sweden were mocked. They were given no chance whatsoever against Italy when the draw was made for the playoffs. When the draw was made for this, they were maybe given an outside chance. People thought Mexico and Germany would be the two teams that got through. They've won 2 from 3. They've really pulled it out of the fire today. And for a country really that is not a footballing superpower at senior level and have absolutely no standout players. There is no Ibrahimovic, there's no Christian Eriksen, for example, for Denmark. There's no Ronaldo in Portuguese terms. They're just a workmanlike, dedicated, fully committed side that are reaping the rewards for their organisation and their desire to play for their country.
Without a doubt. It's great to see, isn't it? I think I was impressed with them actually in the South Korea game. I was impressed with them in the first half against Germany, and they're under pressure. I understand. You've seen enough football yourself, Dave. You go 1-0 up against Germany. What are you going to do in the second half? You're going to retreat a little bit. You're going to be a little bit nervy. You're going to be a bit more edgy because you know that potentially you're going to be in the knockout stages. They've done it the hard way. I never would have seen that result against Mexico today, given the team that Mexico put out. It does have a knocker. You're looking through the permutations that I was obviously working with the BBC today, and they're all looking at now that potentially they could get Sweden in a quarter-final now. That's what they're looking at if wherever they finish in the group. I think it's if they finish second, they could get... they're looking beyond the next game, of course. I wouldn't want to say typical England, but that's kind of how it seems. But it's incredible for Sweden. I think given what's happened, given the furore around Zlatan Ibrahimovic, announcing that he was ready to play for Sweden at this World Cup. I think it's great that the coach stuck with the team that got them there, and they're actually playing decent football. They'll be a threat.
Brilliant stuff, Kev. What's the plan for the evening? Off into the Kazan night and sample the hostelries and the...
No, do you know what? I was talking to Emmett Malone and Dan McDonald today. They're both here in Kazan, so I'll probably meet those two lads. I'll probably have a couple of beers sometime later on. Not wanting to name drop, just in case their wives are listening, that they're telling them that they've gone to bed or anything. But it'll be a quiet night, a bit of food and maybe a beer, and we'll get this next game later on. We'll get the late game, so watch Brazil probably somewhere.
Excellent stuff. We'll chat to you tomorrow.
Cheers, Dave. Take it easy.
Football on Off the Ball.
In association with the faster than ever Boyle Sports app, with hundreds of pre-live and in-play football markets. Download it now. Boyle Sports. Time to play.
Imagine 2,000 first years, an exciting city and friends for life. Imagine 1,000 employer links and the job of your dreams. Imagine a college that's right for you. Explore your CAO choices at Waterford Institute of Technology. Call, drop in, tour, text or web chat and choose WIT before July 1st. wit.ie/CAO.
Get online before you get away. Get your travel insurance with chill.ie today. Chill Insurance Limited, trading as Chill Insurance, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
Some jobs need a master, a mortgage master, with dedication, focus, and expertise. If you need results, you need someone with decades of know-how, with no distractions, no time wasting, and no faffing around. Not a jack of all trades, but the master of one. For a job as important as your mortgage, that's EBS, the Mortgage Masters. Search EBS Mortgage Masters to find out more. Lending criteria, terms, and conditions will apply. EBS DAC is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
I hear you some wiring needs a fixing, ma'am. The name's Buzz, on account of my work.
No chance.
Not all cowboys ride horses. All safe electric registered electrical contractors must give you a certificate of completion that shows their work meets approved standards. Find one nearby on safeelectric.ie.
Off the Ball. This is News Talk.
And you're welcome back. So that was a few moments ago, Dave McIntyre in conversation with Kevin Kilban. Kev looking very happy with himself in his fancy new shirt. I've looked at where we are in terms of how this draw shapes up. I don't generally look very early on. I'm not one of these for doing the old wall chart and
the brackets.
Doing if that goes there and if that goes there. But things really have taken shape now. England and Belgium have an interesting dilemma. So, would you rather be in this half of the draw or in this half of the draw? Uruguay, Portugal, France, Argentina, Brazil, Mexico. That's Uruguay, Portugal, France, Argentina, Brazil, Mexico. Or would you rather be with Sweden, Denmark, Russia, Croatia, Spain? I think it's fairly obvious you're going into that Sweden, Denmark, Russia, Croatia, Spain territory, aren't you? Now, the irony being, if you finish second in England's group, that's where you're going.
Where you go.
And if you top the group, if England beat Belgium tomorrow, then they are in with France, Brazil, Mexico, Argentina, Portugal, Uruguay.
Yeah, there's
Uruguay
no comparison.
who beat them 4 years ago.
Take Spain out of the other group. England would fancy their chances against every single one of them, the way they're playing at the moment. But this has been under discussion for quite some time now, because this group is shaping up in this way for days. And the question is, can you change the mindset of the players from going out all guns blazing, needing to win a game? For one game, tell them, you know what, maybe ease off a little today. I'm going to make wholesale changes. We don't really need to win this game. And then when you need to play a team in the last 16, to return to the previous mindset, the one that you brought with you into the World Cup. Maybe someone like Kevin can tell us tomorrow night, is that something that can be switched on and off?
Yeah, I don't know.
Do you do damage to the momentum that you've built up?
We've had the spectacle of teams trying to draw. I don't remember both teams trying to lose. So it could be quite comical if Belgium and England score a succession of own goals tomorrow. That would be quite something. Let's talk Argentina, though, because we were all gripped by Argentina on the pitch, by Maradona off the pitch. And it's fantastic to welcome back to the show Marcela Mora y Araujo, Argentinian journalist with The Guardian and writes for various outlets as well. Marcela, thanks so much for joining us. Much appreciated.
Hi, thanks.
A quote from Lionel Messi: "I knew that God was with us and would not leave us. We didn't expect to suffer so much, but we were confident we would get through. And thank God it happened." Is Messi prone to talking about God and thanking God and talking in such emotive terms?
Well, I think football is prone to talking about God and deities and religious beliefs, Kabbalahs and superstitions generally. You know, we often see prayers cross themselves or kneel down in prayer more often, increasingly, and thank God and believe that God was helping or aiding. Of course, the most legendary use of God to explain events on the pitch was Maradona himself in 1986, when he quite spontaneously said, "Oh, it must have been God giving us a hand, and the hand of God was thus born." So I don't know that Messi is incredibly religious, but I think it's a kind of way of saying, well, we were lucky and things went our way. You know, we had God on our side. I don't think he meant Maradona was on our side.
Well, he was
helping. Thought that.
Yeah, the Maradona spectacle we'll get to in a sec. I guess I certainly don't remember Messi talking in those terms before, and maybe it's a sign of how much this whole enterprise means to him. Effectively his last chance. I know we may see him again in 4 years, but probably his last big chance. And well, he looked like he meant business last night all the way through. Body language was better, and then, you know, the 3 touches of perfection were there too. But he did seem to be summoning something last night, that's for sure.
Yes, I mean, I think one of the very interesting things about Messi is that he doesn't really talk very much. So there isn't a discourse that one can say, oh, that's very like Messi or very unlike Messi, to say that. He is all behaviour, and in fact, between the dismal Croatia game and the Nigeria game, when everybody in Argentina, if not, you know, the world, everybody who had any kind of interest in what had gone on the pitch, was taking sides, saying he should be more Messi, he should be more Argentinian, where's Messi? Messi's not good enough to be Argentinian, and everybody had an opinion. And he was notable for not getting involved at all. I mean, to the point that people were worried what was going on. There was not one quote from him in 5 days. So the fact that he spoke quite a bit to the press in the mixed zone after the game, and I also saw that kind of, you know, God on our side and read on. And then I realised it was a casual turn of phrase almost, but he did say we suffered, it was difficult. He also said, which I thought was far more revealing, we never for once thought the fans would buy into the whole kind of media hype and all the nonsense that was being said, which I think that's almost a more interesting leap of faith and suspension of something, you know, that trust that the players and the fans have somehow some kind of unity in this despise for the press, which this particular squad has made manifest over the years in quite extreme ways. So after they qualified just to the World Cup in Ecuador, there's a video going round viral. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's there, it's out there, of all the players in the dressing room really swearing at the press generally and saying, a bit like Maradona and his crew in '86, who famously sang, "We dedicate this to all of you," and then start swearing in a kind of chant in the dressing room, which has been filmed in the film Hero. So it's, you know, that's kind of mainstream old world film. This is just a video on someone's shaky phone. But so this is obviously, something that's increasing the tension within the squad and certainly within a sector of the Argentinian press who are very kind of taking a line and falling the kind of anti-Messi or anti-Sampaoli or whatever they are. And that battle that's been just so drawn out and reached points of, I really don't think I exaggerate when I say hysteria, and played out so publicly for, you know, all of Friday, all of Saturday, until Mascherano called a press conference to calm things down. And that's where all these rumours, the coup against the aborted coup, the English papers are saying, which is such strong language, against the manager Sampaoli, the conspiracies to overthrow the chief of the SA. It's just been incredibly drawn out. And Messi says, we never for once believed the people believed that, which is, I think, as I say, more faithful than thinking God helped them, although that's also a possibility.
And yet in the build-up to the tournament, Marcela, Sampaoli was very clear in admitting that really this is Messi's team. If Messi doesn't do it, we don't really have much of a chance of achieving an awful lot in Russia. And watching that game last night, in particular watching his goal, it struck me how reliant he is on others to do something for him, because as magnificent as the goal was, and those first two touches in particular were sumptuous, it was on the back of a quite delicious ball with a perfect amount of loft and backspin on it, right onto his thigh, right into his path. And he is not a messianic character, if you pardon the pun. If he doesn't get a little bit of service, he can't do what he does best, given the level of service he generally gets at Barcelona. And for that reason, I think the press being terribly unfair to him is exactly that. It is just so unfair.
Yeah, I mean, I think no one can do football. No one can win football games on their own. I think that's a complete myth, you know. And it may have occasionally happened that someone has shone above the rest a lot. But Maradona, sorry to bring him up again, but you know, he's the inescapable white elephant in the history of Argentinian football. Maradona himself said after that Croatia game, everybody's being really ridiculous. Stop blaming Messi. He can't do it on his own. I had a whole bunch of players. I knew what Valdano was going to be doing. I knew where Ruggiero was going to be standing. I knew what was going on and where everyone else around me was going to be and what was going to happen. So even Maradona, who is allegedly single-handedly, excuse the pun, my pun in this case, responsible for 1986, wasn't really on his own. The real issue with Argentina is, given the schedules of competitive clubs, the very high level of club football, a lot of the main players have been playing, in recent years, the scheduling this kind of time for them to all get to know each other and understand each other has proved incredibly difficult. And how much that actually explains things is the big conundrum, and I think where the high tensions lie and why people get so kind of passionate about this, because you do see other teams who also don't play regularly that much don't know each other that well, have the same schedules, indeed are playing for the same clubs. And somehow they appear so far in this World Cup, and it's only 3 games in, to have found a better dialogue. And Sampaoli uses the words connectivity and relating on the pitch. And I think whatever the kind of melodrama and the soap opera behind it was, it's clear that the formation that Sampaoli wanted to try against Croatia is something the players were not comfortable with, and they let him know.
Right,
and
okay.
They say, well, that's how you work in a team, and it happens in every club and every country and with every player and with every manager. But somehow we've wanted to kind of believe that Messi said, oh, I'm not going to talk to anybody or move or come out of my room until exactly what I want is done. And I find that second version slightly harder to believe than the first. I think they are very mature, very experienced players. They've done this before and they've got to the final. The kind of titles escape them 3 times, but they've got to the final 3 times. So they know what they can take and how they can sustain it.
Yeah.
And so it would be a very, very foolish manager indeed who didn't actually listen to that.
Yes, absolutely. The clock is coming against us. I'm sorry to say we got held up. But before we go, and this is probably too broad a question to ask under time restriction, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Is Maradona okay? Like, just as a person, is he constantly spiraling out of control? Because I'm working off the few little breadcrumbs I get when I see him at events like this.
Well, he's clearly not okay. I mean, but under any definition of okay, is he worse than he's ever been? Is something more complicated or interesting than previously going on? I doubt it very much.
Okay.
He's 57, so obviously his body probably can resist a little less than it could a while back. But, you know, interestingly, as I say, his comments after that game were the only reasonable voice in a cacophony of lunacy. And he was talking about the football of Messi in a really interesting way. It was on Venezuelan television, so Spanish speakers or Spanish listeners, go and do yourselves a favour and hear him speak about football.
Okay. We might pick that up again at some stage, which in the tournament. No doubt Diego will be watching closely, so we might catch you again at some stage. Marcela, thanks so much for talking to us.
A pleasure as always.
Marcela Mora y Araujo there, and she's written a brilliant piece on The Guardian. It's on their website actually this afternoon about, I guess, last night and Maradona, which is worth checking out.
Off the Ball
on News Talk.
Go forth, adventurer, down empty back roads that narrow and wind. Tackle mud and bumps, obstacles of any kind. Power through this rain-soaked, wind-swept drive.
Have a great day, Sean.
The wildest adventures around Ireland don't come close to the school run. Go anywhere with Land Rover, with the Discovery Sport and Range Rover Evoque available from €39,000. Book your test drive today at landrover.ie. Land Rover, above and beyond. Delivery and related charges apply.
Cash for Clubs is back. Last year, our hockey club in Bray won the top prize of €10,000.
Be in with a chance of winning thousands for your local club by fueling up at Circle K. Find out more by registering today on playerpark.ie. See playerpark.ie for details. Promotion ends on Sunday, 19th of August.
Bruce Betting are one of Ireland's leading bookmakers. Download the iOS app today to see why Bruce Betting are giving you more for World Cup 2018. Bruce Betting, your World Cup bookmaker. In-store, online, and now on your phone. Please gamble responsibly. See dunlewy.net.
Off the Ball. This is News Talk.
So we'll catch up with Marcela again at some stage in the tournament when Argentina are playing in the next few days. Just time to tell you, mystery voice tonight was, of course,
the letter is now in a frame, pride of place in the house.
Stevie G. Congratulations to Paul Maloney, County Westmeath. Paul, you have won a 49-inch LG TV. Congratulations. All with thanks to Expert Electrical, Ireland's largest electrical retailer. 67 stores nationwide. A local expert near you. Find yours at expert.ie. OTBAM tomorrow, 7:45 in all the usual places, all our social channels. Then World Cup Daily with Owen Sheehan at midday. And we'll have Golf Weekly tomorrow as well. And then Nathan back in the evening, 7 o'clock. John Giles in studio. and Donegal manager Declan Bonner as well, actually, with no doubt some interesting things about a Super 8 clash with the Dubs in Croke Park. Thank you, Dave McIntyre.
Thank you.
Much appreciated. Tom Dunn is next. We'll chat to you tomorrow. Good luck.
Get my ball in the attic.